In 2018, a mark was made on the world. The internet series, That's Cringe, sparked the birth of some of the best reaction videos that now exist on this very platform, and ignited the flame in those whose piss was taken out of them. One of these reactionary victims went on to become one of the most universally disliked and even hated channels on YouTube. They go by the name of Girl Defined. If I were to define Girl Defined with one word, I would say that they're infamous. When creators on YouTube first started to collectively coalesce around the reaction farms that were Girl Defined's videos, some questioned whether they were being too harsh on these poor little white women. They were a little cringe and a whole lot of Christian, but what was the harm in that? Every Christian is not a hateful bigot who wants to kill the gays and rule the US with a nailed fist on a cross, but the women of Girl Defined are. Girl Defined is not just two blonde, godly sisters who choose to save their bodies, particularly their lips, the ones on their face, for marriage. Girl Defined is an entity that promotes homophobia, sexism, transphobia, and most importantly, purity. From the conception, which is where life begins, of their channel 8 fateful years ago, one of Girl Defined's core messaging to their largely female audience is to not be a whore. Well, that's not exactly how they choose to phrase it, but I digress. Save yourself for marriage. Don't show your body. Don't talk about sex. Don't even think about it. During these past few years, however, one of the sisters of Girl Defined has become a rogue agent. She took the red pill, so to say, and now almost exclusively talks about sex. Today, I'm going to be analyzing these sisters' behavior from the start of their channel all the way to current day, April 26, 2024. Let it be known that if something happens to me, this was my final message. Define this, Girl Defined. That was just a joke. Please don't come for me.
Hey guys, it's Kristen and Bethany from Girl Defined Ministries.
I would like to give the much needed disclaimer on religion now, lest an angry Christian decides to crucify me. I thought you guys were against that. I grew up in the Catholic Church, I was baptized as a baby, and was confirmed at the ripe age of 14. While I recognize that the Catholic Church is different from many other denominations of Christianity, I'm still allowed to have an opinion on the harmful rhetoric that is pumped out of many Christian churches. Religion is often used as an excuse for people to be bigoted because Jesus Christ himself was known for hating everybody. To act like you can't be criticized just because you believe in a spirit in the sky is absurd. My issue with Girl Defined is not the fact that they love God, but rather with the fact that they promote dangerous ideals to people, particularly women. Another quick disclaimer, a lot of the info I'm getting on Girl Defined for this video is coming from the Fundy Snark Uncensored subreddit. Fundy Fridays is also a YouTube channel that discusses a lot of fundamentalist Christians online, including, but not limited to, Girl Defined. So I'll link their channel and other videos down below if you really wish to jump down the Girl Defined rabbit hole. Be forewarned, it's deep. I myself have made the occasional video reacting to one of Girl Defined's videos. What can I say? It's easy content.
When I was younger, I remember being at the checkout line of the grocery store.
She's like on the verge of tears right now. Are you okay? I'd say that nearly every commentary channel on this platform has reacted to one of their videos at least once. Girl Defined is a channel with 158,000 subscribers, made up of two sisters named Bethany and Christian Beale, although I like to refer to them as Brittany and Bethany because that affirms the misogynistic stereotypes that I have for white, blonde women. Bethany and Christian are part of a large family with 8 children, Bethany and Christian included, who were all homeschooled. What a wonder that worked. Their older content was made up of hit videos such as Why Christian Girls Should Be Beautiful and Not Seductive, The Modern Woman's Struggle with Sexual Sin, and 3 Ways Porn Deceives Girls About Their Sexuality. In these older videos, both sisters are lit by the grace of God, with the amount of overexposure in each of them. While watching Girl Defined's videos, it's also pretty clear that these women actually fucking hate each other.
If you haven't listened to the podcast that we released this Monday, you shared your entire story. You were really open and honest and a huge...
And you made me cry.
I know. So go and listen to it.
We'll be getting into their recent snarkiness towards each other in the second half of the video. Don't worry. On a serious note though, I bring up these videos to point out that Girl Defined has always adamantly been very pro-purity culture since day one. Purity culture has come to be known as a subculture of evangelical Christian culture that emphasizes strict gender roles and norms, abstinence and modesty. The basic teachings differ for males and females in some ways, although the message of abstinence only was the same across the board. The first video I mentioned consisted of them more or less being super slut-shaming towards women who dress or act more provocatively. You shouldn't be glorifying yourself and your body. You should glorify God. By giving him head, of course.
He does not want us to be seductive in order to think that we're beautiful. We should not interchange those words. And we see in the Bible that God created us as his beautiful creations, not just for our own glory, not to allure people and draw them to ourselves, but to ultimately reflect back on the beautiful design that God created us to have and use our beauty for his glory. Our outward beauty as Christian girls should never be used in a way to entice, lure in, distract, and seduce or arouse the people around us.
What about when you do your best to dress modestly and men still find you seductive? Or when you go to the beach, some people would even find a one-piece with swim shorts too revealing. At what point does your own responsibility for others' reactions to your appearance end and theirs begin? Looking at Girl Defined's Instagram currently, they seem to have changed their stance on what this commenter brought up. A woman in a bikini doesn't give men the right to lust. Yeah, I 100% agree. But that doesn't mean women should just wear whatever they want. We are also accountable to God for the choices we make, including how we dress. Listen, are you pro-victim blaming or not? Can you make up your mind? There isn't a black and white list about modesty rules in scripture. God is much more concerned about our hearts. Then why does it matter what you wear? Should these women really be surprised then, after posting post after post after post, blaming women for the way others perceive them, that they would get a comment saying, "This post is beyond the weird. Simply saying to a child to go to the toy store, but don't touch anything." Hey. This is your audience, ladies, okay? In the second video, all about doing the do with yourself like a sea anemone, they both said how self-pleasure issues are not just a male issue, which is a good sentiment since, yes, everyone jerks it, and there's no need to feel shame about that if you are a woman. However, they go on to say that sin is, well, a sin, and you should stop yourself from doing the natural biological thing that your body wants to do when you get in the mood to do said natural biological thing. I'm not sure this advice would help someone who may be feeling shame from their sexual thoughts or actions, though.
I'm the only female who struggles with sin and temptation. They think I'm the only one. No one else. I'm on this island. No one will understand me. People will think I'm weird. And so then we get scared and we don't speak up. Or sin is supposed to be a guy issue, so I must be weird.
That's a big one.
That's a big one. And in our culture, we do often hear like, oh, lust, it's a guy problem. Sin, it's a guy problem.
It's a guy problem. Yeah.
But the reality is it's not a guy problem. It's a human problem. We have, if we are Christians, believers in Jesus Christ, we have that strength within us, and his strength truly is made perfect in our weakness. He didn't come so that we could continue to be slaves to our sins, slaves to this bondage. That's what Satan wants for us. He wants us to steal, kill, and destroy, to keep us in our sin. But Christ wants us to be free. So remember that, wow, Christ, you love me. Through your strength, I can have freedom.
We're going to be talking about self-pleasure a lot in this video. Granted, not so much that this video is not advertiser friendly, okay, YouTube, wink wink, since Christian especially has been very vocal about her personal struggle with it. I just want to put this out there so that I don't have to say it again and again throughout this video. You shouldn't feel shame for self-pleasuring, and if you are feeling shame, you might have some deep-set issues that you should try talking to a professional about, or anyone you trust about. I completely understand not wanting to do something that has been shoved down your throat, fisted down your throat, if you will, your whole life as something that's dirty or even morally wrong. But stopping yourself from submitting to your natural urges in a safe way, of course, isn't going to get you to heaven. It's just gonna make your life harder, wink wink, and more miserable. Rock that hard on 24/7, fellas. Don't jerk it. Abstinence rocks. I'd also like to note that porn and masturbation addictions are very real things that people struggle with that often aren't taken very seriously. If you think you might be in that boat, that's an entirely different conversation than the one we're having right now, and not one you should be having with two random Christian women on the internet. The third video of theirs that I mentioned is about my favorite form of media, adult films. Not rated. The scummiest scum of the internet. Rule 34, I have a problem, okay? Both women go on to talk about how women are pressured nowadays to sexualize themselves, and I completely agree. There's a long-winded discussion to be had about the dangers of pushing young women to sexualize themselves and how even their possible choice to be provocative in public and online may not even be a choice of their own due to the system that they are brought up in. However, that is a whole different subject that I'm not even sure Bethany or Christian have even ever investigated themselves. So I'm going to take what they're saying here at face value. There's nothing wrong with dressing modestly or doing the exact opposite. The problem is when we shame others for choosing a different lifestyle, or when we lose sight of some of the main issues in the world, one of them being the patriarchal society that we're all brought up to be in. Shaming women for what they choose to do with their body is sexist and reductive. Misogyny affects all women, granted in different ways, but that's the prevalent issue that these women fail to recognize, that what they've been promoting is a dangerous culture of beliefs that primarily harms women. They do go on to make a few good points though, surprise, surprise. Christian goes on to state how promotes an unattainable standard of beauty for women and how it makes it seem as though your looks are all that matter as a woman, which I definitely agree, it does do that. Bethany, however, starts raving about how nudity is not something that's valued anymore, which, I mean, I kind of agree with. However, that's her personal viewpoint she chooses to have on her own life. It's unnecessary to shame women who choose to flaunt their bodies, as she states. Could there be a deeper issue as to why a woman is choosing to show her body more? Absolutely. But again, let's take it at face value, which is that some people just like to dress more scantily. The final point that they bring up during this video is how women are objectified more nowadays because the adult film industry is so poppin', if you will, and that women are more than just their bodies. Again, I understand what they're both trying to say here, and I partly agree, but the way that they frame their arguments come across as more slut-shamey than anything else.
Online, the pressure for sexting, I mean, all of these things are telling us that, hey, your body's your own, live it up, show it off, no big deal. Number one, you are only as valuable as your body. Now that is a huge lie that we see, and here's how we see it, because when you look at the industry as a whole, what is it made up of? It's made up of primarily young, beautiful women. So what happens when we as women may see something like this, we see that and think, oh, that's what beauty is. That's what valuable women are. That's what they look like. Oh, so we compare ourselves, and guess what? 99% of the time, we're not going to measure up to these perfectly airbrushed, perfect camera angles type of women. It's not going to happen. It's by promoting the message that nudity is common and cheap. And so we just encourage you to get back to God's design and say, wow, God, you are the creator of me, and you created with me with a beautiful, sacred design that I want to celebrate within the right context. It tells us that it's empowering to be objectified. Lie that my body is where my worth is, that being objectified is somehow empowering. I'm going to reject that, instead say, God, thank you for making me a beautiful woman. Would you help me to embrace my worth and my value in your sight and to live as a beautiful daughter of the King rather than an object to be consumed?
All in all, adult media can be harmful in a lot of different ways, but the way to deal with your consumption of these things, whatever that may be, is not by hating yourself or thinking that there's something wrong with you. Their more recent videos on their channel are more or less the same, but are mostly just their podcast uploads and not the shorter form videos that they've usually uploaded in the past. And I hate to break it to you all, but I'm not watching a dozen 1 hour long podcast episodes for this video. Sorry. I'm not a video essayist who takes 6 years to put out a video, okay? But some of their recent podcast episodes involve discussing why being in the kitchen is actually empowering for women, whether marriage will solve sexual struggles, whether is less sinful than adultery, and sharing Jesus with women in strip clubs. One of my favorite personal pastimes. I don't want to take any of these videos out of context since I didn't watch the full entirety of them, but it's safe to say that the purity culture mindset is still something that they push a lot on their channel, although not necessarily to the extent that they used to. Before we get into Bethany's rebrand, I want to get a little more into the lore of Girl Defined, specifically some of the most offensive and outrageous things that these white chicks have said. I've already covered most of their YouTube content, but what about their other platforms? First off, we have to tackle their Instagram. As recent as a few months ago, Bethany and her husband Dave made a reel with the caption, "Welcome to the side of Instagram where we believe marriage was assigned by God and can only be between a man and a woman. And I believe that the sky is blue, but who's correct here? Oh wait, the sky is actually blue." I'm gonna be honest, I will never understand people who are against gay marriage. The church was meant to be separate from the state. That's because the pilgrims had to flee religious persecution themselves. Did we forget that? Do what you want in your own time, but don't push your beliefs on me, okay? In a reel that Christian posted, which was a shortened version of her 30-minute YouTube rant about Target's Pride collection, she goes into a Target just to show off all of the Pride clothes that were being sold there as of last June. Someone has a lot of free time on her hands. She then goes on to rant about how people shouldn't be allowed to choose their own identity and that babies shouldn't be allowed to wear onesies that have rainbows on them. 77 weeks ago, yes, I dug very, very far into their Instagram, they made a very relevant post questioning whether dancing is biblical.
You think dancing is biblical?
Is biblical?
Is biblical. Well, okay, that's interesting because there are multiple mentions of dancing in the Bible. I don't know what kind of dancing they're referring to because there is a spectrum.
Apparently, these two women live in the movie Footloose. Another cut-down YouTube video was an interview that they did with a former drag queen, or as I like to say, pick me self-hating gay man. Girl Defined has a pretty lengthy history of disliking drag queens, so of course, they would try to find a man who found God and is now adamantly anti-drag. Did he go through conversion therapy too? We all know how well that works. Truly, I'm not sure what is so satanic about dressing up as a character for a show, but apparently everything that could possibly give you joy is against God's design. What am I supposed to do? Wear a straitjacket and shackle myself to a ball and chain in a padded room? I'm sure that's what these women would recommend for me, to be honest, so. Here I go! What's the danger in pride culture? How could Christians respond to the LGBTQ movement? With kindness, of course, or as I like to say, condemning them to eternal damnation. Here's a nice little infographic. My body, my choice. His creation, his child. You're boning God? I mean, up top, my sister, come on. Your gender is not a mistake. Your body is not a mistake. Your biology is not a mistake. You are not a mistake. Who the fuck do they have drawing these infographics for them? That's an honest question. Now hiring, need a graphic arts designer who will write up transphobic posts for me. Oh jeez, that's just the job title I've been looking for. There's a pretty simple explanation in my opinion that Christians refuse to accept when it comes to trans people, and that's that they were made to be trans by God for a reason. Nobody in the world has access to two different lives, two different lived experiences like trans people do. In my opinion, that's such a beautiful thing. You have a unique outlook that no one else has on the world. No, trans people aren't mistakes because they were made by God to be trans. Doesn't he have bigger fish to fry? On Fridays, preferably leading up to Easter. We cannot define ourselves because we did not design ourselves. This is such a skewed point of view, in my opinion. I can't call myself a painter because God made me. I understand what they're talking about is your self-expression being an old queer, but this can easily be taken to the extreme by religious fanatics such as yourselves. Why can't we live fulfilling lives being who we are? Is God really so hateful that he needs us to be miserable by picking apart every little sin that we commit? Bethany and Christian's blog posts on their website are an entire other beast to tackle. Going back to the ever controversial topic of the bikini. Christian posted a blog post on August 14th, 2015, titled, "The bikini is destroying the Christian girl's view of modesty." Ladies, if you want to go swimming in public, you should be adorning a full plague suit in front of me because I will be on the slut watch. The bikini has single-handedly destroyed the moral compass of the average woman today. The bikini has warped almost every woman's view on modesty and decency. When a woman is told that it's completely normal and appropriate to uncover 90% of her body, she is being taught that nakedness is totally normal. She then goes on to rant about how Europeans swim naked at nudist beaches. Sounds like this is very personal to you for some reason, Christian. By placing her stamp of approval on the bikini, she is forced to lower the bar on modesty down to a few measly pieces of triangular fabric. This is disastrous. In another article, they talk about the horrifying truth about abortion, in which she talks about videos from Planned Parenthood. In these linked videos, people are seen selling baby parts I don't know the full extent of this, but I do know that fetal tissue is very commonly used for a wide array of medical research. The sad reality is that most of us are against abortion, but we do little to nothing to fight against it. This statement is just blatantly false. I understand finding the process of abortion to be gruesome because it is pretty disturbing, especially later in the pregnancy, but no one, at least I hope no one, is acting like abortion is this pretty thing. It's something that most people have to seriously deliberate before making a choice about, an extremely hard choice at that. The fact of the matter is that sometimes having a baby is not feasible for a multitude of reasons, and people should not be forced to give birth just because you believe that God helps make that baby. 85% of women who get abortions are not married. Purity is a huge problem in our generation. Set up boundaries of protection for yourself and take a stand for purity amongst your friends. Encourage the girls around you to have safe sex from marriage. I won't sit here and lie to you all by saying that a ton of abortions are performed because of a non-consensual insemination, because that's not true, but let's not act like that's not a part of it. Not to mention that humans are designed to want sex. It's going to happen, and mistakes happen. When people aren't taught safe sex in school, which is what you advocate against, that just makes things worse. Comprehensive sex education problems have demonstrated success in reducing rates of sexual activity, sexual risk behaviors, STIs, and adolescent pregnancy and delaying sexual activity. Many systemic reviews of the literature have indicated that comprehensive sex education promotes healthy sexual behaviors, reduced sexual activity, reduced number of sexual partners, reduced frequency of unprotected sex, increased condom use, and increased contraceptive use. Not only that, but comprehensive education on this also helps kids recognize when something wrong happens to them by the hands of an adult. It teaches consent and boundaries, and that Uncle Tom is not supposed to touch you there, little Timmy. In one article, Christian rants about the birth control pill and how it's leading modern women to become such harlots, since they can just bang everyone and everything and never worry about having to get pregnant anymore. She also rants about why she's not a feminist, and even has a post from 2014 talking about how she's a mind virgin. Like me, so many Christian girls strive to save their virginity for their future husbands, but very few are as passionate about saving their minds for their husbands as well. She states how God is basically like Santa Claus and knows what you're thinking 24/7. If God can see my thoughts. Are you struggling with secret lustful sins right now? Yes, I'm thinking about sucking and if so, my prayer is that you will take this blog post as a sign that it's time to confess those sins and to live a pure life. What water are you drinking from each day? The dirty water of our world or the living water of Jesus? No wonder these women weren't attracted to their husbands. Do they even know what attraction is?
I was just like not attracted at all, you know?
Like just zero?
Yeah, I would say like zero. I remember when you were walking down the aisle to Zach and you whispered over to me and you were like, I'm not attracted to him, but I'm going for it.
Here I go.
Of course your sex life is going to be terrible once you get married, when you never even allowed yourself to think about your boyfriend being hot or sexy. In 2014, Bethany made a blog post about waiting until marriage to kiss, which is something that the sisters have been clowned on, rightfully so, for years. Both Bethany and Christian did in fact wait till marriage to kiss anyone, which is insane in my humble opinion. If you want to do that, or if you want to save yourself from marriage, I disagree, but that is your decision, not mine. I personally think kissing is gross, but that's something for me and my therapist to discuss, not you and I. I'm certainly not going to shame anyone for what they choose to do with their bodies. That would make me a hypocrite. Instead of viewing your kiss as something meaningless and cheap, I want to challenge you to view it as a very expensive treasure box. It's your job to keep your treasure safe until the person with the right key comes to unlock it. I realize that the Bible doesn't say, "Thou shalt not kiss," but it does give some incredible principles and some pretty clear direction on where we should be headed. Bethany then implores with us to question ourselves before kissing someone by asking a few simple questions, which I will be asking mid-moment, by the way. Will that interaction reflect absolute purity? Will there not even be a hint of sexual immorality? Will God be glorified by what he sees? Will it awaken love before its appropriate time? Will it portray God's holiness? Holiness. This is the problem I have with a lot of purity culture, and Girl Defined specifically. Most of these messages are aimed solely at shaming women. Women should take the blame for everything, whereas men can have a fucking free-for-all. What about men who are shirtless at the beach? That's 80% of their body on display. I'm getting horny just thinking about it. What am I gonna do? It's all about sexism to me. Bethany and Christian have also published multiple books, with the content of them being more or less the same as the rest of their free content. I'm not reading them because I'm not trying to self-harm anymore. I want to be free. For a long time, Bethany and Christian fostered an environment of shame surrounding sex and lust. But this has changed ever so recently. They've both become swingers. While Christian married her husband Zach at the fresh age of 24 in 2011, her sister Bethany was not so lucky. No, don't give me hiccups now, God. Fuck, is this because of what I said? I'm gonna have to sit here for 20 minutes trying to get rid of these now. Shit. For years, Bethany had boasted about how single she is. Join the club, girlfriend.
Maybe you have the gift of singleness. That's what some people would tell me when I was single, and I hated it. I kind of wanted to punch them in the face.
As her eggs were beginning to dry up, she started to feel a sense of urgency surrounding the topic of marriage. In 2018, she married her husband Dave at the age of 30, and it's always been downhill from there. Christian's downfall is a bit more linear as opposed to Bethany's, so let's go over that real quick. Of course, Christian has been accused of all the usual isms, but there's one alarming thing that people have taken notice of recently. Christian has been open about her infertility problems on Girl Defined for a while now. I can't imagine what it's like wanting to have a child and having to deal with not being able to conceive, and I'm not even going to begin to try to act like I know anything about it. Because of her and her husband's struggles with conception, she decided to give the gift of adoption instead. 3 years ago, Christian announced that she adopted 2 boys from Ukraine. In reacting to this, commenters on Reddit shared a pretty similar opinion to this one. Somehow this makes Bethy's tirade seem even more heinous. Her sister is celebrating expanding her family in a non-traditional way, at least for fundies, and Bethany goes on a rant about how birth and breastfeeding is what makes a woman a woman. Holy shit, read the room, Bethy. Obviously, she was probably just slathering and raving at the mouth about trans people, but guess what? Transphobia harms cis women too. This is another element to the sister drama that the fundy snarkers have noticed. After Christian adopted her 2 children, critics of hers started to notice a few odd things in relation to their adoption within her post. They speculated that Christian actually banned her 2 adopted sons from speaking their native language of Russian.
They still speak some, but it's funny because when you guys first came here in their room at night, when they're like talking in their bunk beds, they were only speaking Russian, so I never knew what you were saying. And now you speak English to each other, and I know what you're saying.
When I'm allowed that because and the mom not know what we're saying.
I know.
Okay.
I couldn't know what you were
Okay,
saying.
today we will speak Russian at night.
Okay, tell them something in Russian.
Secret.
Oh, come on. Some people probably speak Russian who are watching.
No.
Здравствуйте. Привет. Меня зовут Кристин.
I'm not sure if one could make the allegation that they're not allowed to speak Russian in their household, but it is a bit implied, especially since the boys seemed extremely hesitant to speak Russian when she asked for them to do so. I think the bit that is the most important to point out here is, why would you adopt 2 kids who speak no English and not learn how to communicate them just a little bit prior to adopting them? I'm not sure if that's the case, but from this video, it seems like her Russian is stunted at best. The other thing that people noticed was the way that Christian spoke about her adoption of her 2 children. If you're wrestling with unfulfilled longing right now, I know that could be so painful and raw. I get that. I'm still in that season in many ways. Adoption doesn't erase infertility or miscarriage. To which a commenter on Reddit said, "Yikes, as an adopted person myself, huge alarm bells and red flags. This woman adopted only because she could not have biological children. And yes, as an adopted person, I know that is a big reason why people adopt in general. But reading this, it's her only reason. That's a huge, scary red flag." It's a hard lesson to learn after you adopt. Adopting doesn't fix infertility. It doesn't heal the trauma. And if you don't deal with that trauma ahead of time, she clearly didn't, then it will overflow in the way you parent, the way you mother, the way you love and care for your child, the choices you make, the life you live, your attitude. Most importantly, it overflows to your adopted children and imprints on them, their foundation, a failing, crippling foundation that's already been from rocky from being adopted. The message she is not only telling her children by her actions and feelings she holds deep inside, she's physically verbalizing so one day her children can read them. And what will they read between the lines? I'm not hers, she wanted one of her own. I'm not her own. Another thing that critics took notice of was when Kirsten made a post talking about how becoming a mom didn't fix her own personal discontentment with her life. I'm not bringing this up to shame her. Dealing with infertility and miscarriages is awful, and I hope she can eventually heal from that in whatever way is best for her. I'm just pointing out that many people's speculations on whether or not she is using her adopted children as band-aids for her pain. I am not going to speculate on that. Other than that, and the homophobia and everything else, Christian has mostly been out of the spotlight when it comes to matters outside of Girl Defined, other than shading her sister on Instagram. But was there any doubt left in your mind after watching their videos that these two women hate each other? Let's get into the meat and potatoes of this video, or as I like to call it, a short segment on what I put in the thumbnail because I talked for way too long already. As I stated, Bethany and her husband David, better known as Dave, because white people, got married in 2018, and since then, they've had a long and hard history of oversharing. Their own wedding was live streamed. That's a level of influencing that I don't think anyone is willing to commit to. After getting married, sharing her first kiss, and busting the big O, for the first time, Bethany's content on her socials started to take a sharp turn. This may be why Girl Defined as an entity has also changed their stance on certain things such as modesty, but I can't say for sure. Like I previously mentioned, for a few years, Bethany would joke about her gift of singleness and how hard it was for her to see young women get engaged while she was still single at her big age. That all changed when she married Dave. Now Bethany has been marketing a ultimate Christian sex course for women on her personal socials and on Girl Defined's Instagram for months. I did not try this course for this video, although I probably need it, but I'll link some videos down below of people who did. The ultimate consensus on it was that it wasn't good. Apparently, in that Bethany has no authority on the topic of sex. In these sessions with Bethany and a few other choice professionals on the matter, for the low price of $189, he will discuss things such as making sense of an and the true path towards a spicy bedroom. It's a 10-day and 2-week-long venture. Put me in prison instead. It is very bizarre to me to push purity culture for years as the main branding, then after getting married, realize the harmful effects it has on sexual health, specifically yours, and then start marketing a course for women to buy who are confused. It's kind of like, well, almost exactly like profiting off of a problem that you helped contribute to. Beth's strange shift started about 3 years ago when her and her husband posted a reel on Instagram in which he puts whipped cream in her mouth. Since when was this considered modest, Bethy? After that, the post just got increasingly worse. Don't worry, their dual brand Girl Defined still makes plenty of content talking about how they both struggled with meth. And I mean like literally every single post they make is about this. Maybe see a therapist instead of promoting your workshops to people who are struggling with the same thing. Maybe this shouldn't be seen as a struggle and instead of a natural human thing that's okay to do. To the dismay of Bethany's followers, however, Bethany has gone a little too far in the way that she's addressing intimacy on her socials. You're doing this here now too? I used to love your content until every single post became your sex course. I had to unfollow your personal account because of it. As a single woman, I don't want sex to be all over my feed. It's just not appropriate. A post here and there are fine, but this is getting silly. I really hope that this isn't becoming your whole brand now. I think this is a crucial message and one single people need too. At Bethany Beal, sure, but it's all you posted about for months on your profile, and now it's just seeping into everything else you do. I'm just wondering if this is going to be all you're doing now. If that's the case, I personally don't want it in my feed, so I'll probably be unfollowing, which is a shame. There needs to be more women by women teaching in our community. Hi, it's definitely a large focus on what I'm doing now. I totally understand if you need to unfollow. Are we surprised that the audience who you've told to be disgusted about sex is disgusted by you talking about sex? In response to one sexual innuendo that Bethany made about turkey basting, her followers were again really upset. I'm married and I don't really want to hear about other people's sex life. That's really gross. In her defense though, she's really kind when it comes to responding to these people. It would be pretty unchristian of her if she was a bitch. So in one reel, she expresses her discontent for people who say that oral within marriage is a sin. In another one, she's mocking Christians who she used to be like, might I add, who say, we don't talk about, to which she replies, God created it. We're going to talk about it. Unless you're doing it outside of marriage, then we'll burn you at the stake, whore. Bethany's TikTok is even worse. Post after post after post talking about intercourse, which is obviously not something that I personally take issue with. It's just such a bizarre switch up. Almost as if she's trying to hide something else. One more thing I want to say about this sex course is that Bethany admitted to not even knowing what sex was until she was 20.
I did not even understand what it really was until I was probably like 20. I literally was like 20 when I finally realized, like, oh my goodness, like body parts have to come together. My mind was blown. And hilariously enough, my husband, he was like 17 or 18 before he actually learned.
And she presumably didn't have it until she got married only 4 years ago at the age of 30. I feel bad for her. To lack such a fundamental understanding of your own body is so sad. But I have to ask again, why would she ever be an authority on this matter? Granted, she has experts helping her in her course, but my point still stands. Many people also find it odd that she's so heavily pushing this course out to people when people have speculated that Bethany and her husband are not happy within their relationship. Specifically, people have pointed out that Dave does not seem happy in the relationship. And in podcasts where Bethany and Dave overshare their most intimate parts of their life, Dave has even explicitly shared how he's unsatisfied with their relationship.
My biggest problem was not what I wasn't getting out of our relationship. It was what I was bringing to our relationship and wasn't capable of in our relationship, which was very underdeveloped and very low.
More of Dave seeming miserable. What do you think is going on? In the photos they posted, neither he nor Bethany seem to be able to even fake happiness. 2 years ago on her Instagram, Bethany vowed to be a cleaner person to Dave, whatever the hell that means. And Fundies pointed out that maybe this would be the end of the shared toothbrush? Pardon? Around the same time, rumors started speculating within gossip circles that Dave was allegedly put through conversion therapy by Bethany and that she groomed him. These are pretty heavy accusations, and I'm unable to find any evidence of the former, but as for the latter, well, Bethy did say once in an Instagram post that she first laid eyes on him when he was 16 and she was 22. Definitely the eyebrow raiser, however, they didn't start dating until he was 23. Not to mention that Bethany was emotionally stunted as an adult and probably did not have the kind of maturity that most adults have at her age when she started dating him. This isn't to excuse anything that allegedly might have happened, but I really don't think that there is anything to excuse since Dave was 23 when they started dating, not freshly legal. Yum. About a year ago, shit really started to hit the fan, so to say, as Beth and Dave both started sharing more problems about their relationship. In a podcast episode, Dave states how he feels that their relationship was underdeveloped, which can happen when one of you wants to rush into the marriage. Bethy did say at the end of this clip that they both started seeking counseling, which is good since around the same time, Dave started sharing how he was having suicidal ideations. My voice is going. People were quick to blame Dave's emotions on Bethany's actions. I don't know anything about their relationship except for the large amount that they've shared online about it, but mental health problems are caused by a variety of things. Not just one thing. He very well could have other stuff going on, and their apparent, alleged relationship problems could have made it worse. It's called 13 Reasons for a Reason. Gossipers also pointed to the video that Bethany and David made about the man-hating Barbie movie as another nail in the coffin with Dave's apparent unhappiness. In this video, Dave repeatedly states how he kind of liked the Barbie movie, while Bethany makes every attempt to try to make him think that he actually hates it like she does. One of the biggest developments in their relationship actually happened very recently, and that's that Dave actually ended up leaving Christianity and condemning himself to the eternal fire of Satan. Seriously though, I hope that they can figure it out, because personally, I couldn't date a sinner. I'm not going to speculate. I say all of this just to point out that Bethany has done such a full 180 in the way that she carries herself online. seemingly causing issues with Girl Defined's branding as a whole. Bethany barely even talks about God unless Christian is in the video with her, which is curious. Speaking of Girl Defined, why don't we go back to talking about their brand as a whole, because even that has taken a turn for the worse recently. I'm assuming that all of you believe that Girl Defined is a business. They have revenue from many different streams, make profit from their books and ads, and have employees. All of that, I would have someone file my taxes under a business. Corporation, LLC, whatever the fuck, I'm not a tax expert. Wrong! Girl Defined, surprisingly, is actually a non-profit as of 2017. I know what you're thinking. What kind of charity work are these two goons doing? Well, here's the catch. There are allegations swarming around online that Girl Defined is committing tax fraud. Allegedly. First of all, Girl Defined Ministries has recently been asking for donations from their followers with a goal of $30,000 being set. Why don't they dip into their own money since they're apparently making so much? And a year ago, this goal was $35,000. Bethany's woohoo courses also tie into their alleged IRS scandal. They claim that Bethany's dealings with the Do is separate from their page, but their Instagram stories show otherwise. This is not only unethical, but is also possibly illegal since Girl Defined as an entity is a non-profit, and Bethany's courses are very much a for-profit thing being marketed. I don't know though, because I'm not a tax expert. That's why I have panic attacks about it all the time. Okay, moving on. If any of this Girl Defined money isn't going to charitable activities, whatever the fuck that is, then that is considered fraud, allegedly. As recent as a year ago, Bethany made a post on Girl Defined's Instagram stories saying, "It's all about maximizing profit." Charitable profit, right? Right? Nonprofits are tax exempt, meaning they don't have to pay any federal income tax on the money they generate each year. To become a nonprofit, they submit paperwork to the government to prove that their point of their venture is not to make money for private individuals, but to provide some benefit to the public, and thus they should get a tax break. If it turns out the money from your nonprofit is actually going towards private interest, example, enriching the owners rather than being reinvested into the public goals that were stated in your nonprofit application, you've just committed tax fraud. Tax records for nonprofit organizations are also public, so anyone can see them. One user on Reddit looked into this themselves. On their latest publicly available tax statement filed in 2022, Girl Defined is classified as a youth development program, although their official Instagram account says otherwise. Is GD's most recent tax filing still for a youth development program, or did they change this category? Time will tell. 501c3 orgs must make their financial statements available to the general public. Girl Defined appears to only be interested in sending this information to people on their email list or via direct messages. Yes, these statements can be obtained via the public internet, but their resistance to openly share this information is a red flag. This Redditor even linked Girl Defined's tax information in the thread, which you can look into if you so wish. Again, I am not an expert, and I am not claiming that any of these allegations are true, but I'm failing to understand why they are registered as a non-profit when it seems, allegedly, like what they're doing is A, not charitable, and B, very much for profit. Girl Defined is a name that is infamous in many different spaces online. First, they were victims of cringe. Now, they're the aggressor. After years of sharing their stupidly asinine takes online and getting shit for it, are we at all surprised that these two women have gone off the deep end? No one is to blame here, not even God, for even he does not have authority over the IRS. Bethany and Christian Beale, once the epitome of purity culture online, are now reaping what they've sown. Well, that's it for me, and that's it for this video. Let me know what you all think about Girl Defined and what you thought about this video in general by leaving a comment down below. Anything you might want to be fine will be linked in the description down below. If you liked this video, you can give it a thumbs up. If you like me, you can subscribe. I post comedy and commentary videos every Sunday at 12 p.m. Eastern, so if that sounds like your thing, make sure to subscribe and turn notification bell so you know when I post a video. I really hope you all enjoyed this video. I hope you got a good laugh out of it. I hope you got something informative out of it. But more importantly, and most of all, I really hope I see you in the next video. I better see you in the next video. God's watching. Okay, peace.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough,